Welcome back, everybody, to the Jocks of All Trades podcast. We are Sideline GMs tonight, and I have a special guest, Matt. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing just well, man. How about yourself?
Doing really well. So tonight we're going to talk about the Packers and their needs, their overview, the Chiefs as well, and then the Bengals, and that will kind of wrap up our Sideline GMs overview of the offseason for all these teams. And free agency is about done. And the draft is soon upon us, so we'll talk about that a little bit as well. Matt, so you are a Vikings fan, and that kind of means you've had run-ins with the Packers the last 20 or so years of you being a fan.
Yeah, for sure.
uh,
Especially at work,
yeah.
a lot of Packers fans there, and definitely some hazing over the years. That's for sure.
So you kind of know everything about them. I'm sure you hate them with a passion, as I would too if I played them. How did they do this year? How did they do this year? And do you think the current state of the team, do you think they can get back to playoff form next year?
I think they can. I mean, sure, it's easy enough to hate a division rival, but I do respect them. I respect Aaron
Yeah.
Rodgers' play for sure. Is he an all-time great? He's getting there. He's getting there. I think he still needs to get another ring for sure.
Yeah.
All in all, I think with the right selections in the draft and potentially the right signings, they can definitely get back to Super Bowl contention for sure. I think getting Bakhtiari should help their O-line a lot, this coming year. So, yeah. And, with them losing Devontae Adams and Valdez-Scantling, I mean, that's kind of a tough blow on Rodgers, but he still has a couple good running backs in Aaron Jones and
Yeah.
A.J. Dillon. So
Yeah, they're probably one of the best duos in the league, I would say. So he's definitely not bare there. I think his offensive line, for the most part, is pretty good. Losing Corey Linsley last year kind of hurt, but I think they can easily replace someone. This year in the second or third round, they got Josh Myers out of Ohio State a year ago in the draft, and he's starting for them at center. So if they could get like a plug and play guy at guard this draft, like I think their offensive line is very capable. But you're right, it's Devontae Adams and Valdez Scantling. Even though I think Scantling kind of got overpaid, I don't think he's that good. I think kind of Aaron Rodgers made him better than what he was. Losing both of them is really going to hurt. So we'll see.
You figure you lose, surefire hands of Adams, and Scaling was just, a threat down the field. Like it's going to be hard to replace that speed. But like you said though, with the offensive line, with this draft, I feel like there's a lot of players that are like it's real offensive line and defense heavy. So I think it's going to be easy to replace, or plug in a few pieces to help that O-line a little bit.
Yeah, definitely defense heavy for sure. I would say probably pass rush, outside linebackers, probably the premium here. I don't say they have a need right there because they did resign Devondre Campbell on the inside. Rashawn Gary's still there. They re-signed Preston Smith. But, I mean, at defensive end, though, they really love getting those guys late because they're usually there at the late first of the round because they're always in the playoffs. But, like, Kenny Clark was a late first-round pick for them years ago. He turned out really well. They got Rashawn Gary, who they turned into a linebacker. They did sign Jaron Reed this offseason. So I wouldn't put it past them to get a guy like that at defensive end or D tackle at the end of the first. But I mean, I just think they should go all in at receiver, to be honest. I think they're okay pretty much everywhere else.
A little fun fact, actually. If they do choose to go with wide receiver in the first round, it would be the first time since the 2002 with Javon Walker.
Oh,
So
boy.
you're talking, yeah, I mean, you're talking literally 20 years at this point. So I think things need to change. I think you need to break the trend and,
Yeah,
maybe go out and get that receiver. I mean, there's plenty of them out there this draft.
for
So
sure. And right where they're at, too. Like, I wouldn't say receiver is like top 10 heavy this year. Like last year, when you had Devonta Smith, you had Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle. This year, it's kind of middle of the round to late to second. And you can get guys like we're seeing here. Drake London will probably be top 15, but Traylon Burks, I think, could easily slide to the end of the first. Jahan Dotson as well could be there. Guys like David Bell, Jamison Williams could slide. John Mechie's back there. There's so many receivers they could get at the end of the first, or even trade back into the second and pick up one that would be, an instant impact. Were there any guys that stick out to you that they could target in round one?
Actually, yeah, for pick 22, I think Drake London is actually going to go a little mid to late first round, just because he is kind of fighting I believe it's an ankle injury right now. So I think teams are going to kind of be like wary about that because they didn't really see him for his pro day.
Yeah.
But if I'm looking at a young receiver right now, I would look at Drake London. You're talking 6'4", 6'5", around 209, 210, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
When I think of the NFC North in general, I think big receivers. Randy Moss was one of them coming out in the 98. Calvin Johnson for the Lions, he was 6'5", 6'6", something like that, like huge. I think with Drake London being a big target, he gets great red zone options. 50-50 balls, so on and so forth. And I think he's a good replacement for Adams. I say, go all in on Drake London at pick 22 if he's available.
Do you think they could trade up for a guy like Drake London? Do you think they'd be willing to do that?
I don't know that I would because, there are plenty of wide receivers in this draft, where they're drafting at. But, if it's one of those, if you're going to take him, I don't feel you should reach for him just because, if Drake London doesn't, pan out right there, there's I'm trying to remember one of the other receivers that are available right now. There's Traylon Burks, but I have him going to pick 28. I mentioned that, the Packers haven't picked a wide receiver in the first round in 2022 or since 2002. You're talking 20 years.
Yeah.
Why not break the trend by just doubling down, go wide receivers with both your first round picks, get Aaron Rodgers as weapons.
Yeah. And they're both very different receivers too, Burks and London. And I personally wouldn't go after guys like Christian Watson from North Dakota State. I think Olave and Wilson will probably go earlier, but obviously if they're there, I'd take them in a heartbeat. I think you want guys that are like ready to go and step in day one and produce. I think London could do that. I think Burks could do that. I just don't know if guys like Christian Watson or Sky Moore or Alec Pierce from Cincinnati, like these guys that are kind of projects, I probably wouldn't take them just because Rodgers is at the end of his career. And I don't really think he wants to get more receivers up to speed.
No.
I think personally he'd just like a guy that's ready to go, instant impact, can get him the ball, watch him just work in space. And Drake London, even though his route tree wasn't great in college, like he didn't really do much variety. I mean, he's just the kind of guy you can stick on a football field and just chuck it up to him and let him come down with it. So
those USC receivers, I mean, they're you find some that are, fairly decent. And I think Drake London is going to be one of those that, is NFL ready right off the bat and can make an impact real early on in his career. So long as he stays healthy, of course.
Yeah, that's a big thing. And then I would say Travis Jones at D tackle. Like I said, they do love their edges. They do love their D tackles. I think he's kind of sneaking into the second, maybe at the end of the first. I wouldn't be surprised if he was on there kind of on their draft board and wanting to pick him. People talk a lot about Jordan Davis, as they should, but Travis Jones really seems to be rising up the ranks, and he's very athletic. I think why people probably don't have him higher is because he went to Connecticut, so like he's not on everybody's radar, but he seems to be rising up. And then I have Donovan West there as well as an interior lineman. He's about 6'4", 300, kind of the mold they want for their offensive lineman, as maybe like a third or fourth round pick for them. But they have 2 firsts and 2 seconds, those picks coming from the Raiders. If they double dip at receiver, where else do you think they should go with those other 2 picks?
Well, seeing as Vikings did sign Zadarius Smith, I think that they need to potentially go linebacker and a couple and one of the rounds for sure. But no, I think they should go defense. Their defense, it's not great. It could definitely use improvement. And, I think picking up the right pieces defensively could help them get back to where they were 2 years ago when they met Tampa Bay in the NFC Championship. And, hopefully when that happens, they decide to give Aaron the ball rather than, kick it on 4th down. And
yeah, not great. It's sad, though, because they get there and then they kind of choke. So, I guess the big question is for the Packers before we go on to the Chiefs is can they get back to dominance without Davante Adams? Like, I know playoffs, I think that's still obviously realistic, but can they get back to like the NFC Championship without Davante Adams?
NFC Championship? No, I don't believe so. Now, if we're talking division winner, yeah, I would say they are in contention for being a divisional winner, because Aaron Rodgers is going to be Aaron Rodgers. He's just going to sling it all over the field. He's going to find someone that, whether they're open, whether they're not open, he's going to squeeze the ball in. He's going to make he's going to make plays and make players better. And, like I touched on earlier, you're talking Aaron Jones, a great option coming out of the backfield. A.J. Dillon is just an absolute stud. Dude is huge. And, while he hasn't really had as much opportunity to prove himself as, say, Aaron Jones has, look out. Just because, he's not going to run around you. He's going to run through you.
Yeah.
So divisional winners for sure. NFC Championship, I don't see it yet. Now, without getting the right pieces for Rodgers to throw the ball to.
Yeah, I think that whole thing with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon is like they have options, like if Jones goes down, you got Dillon. If Dillon goes down, you got Jones. And we know in this league, running backs are not always at a premium. There is a devaluation of running backs. So, if push comes to shove, they don't need one of those guys. They could probably get rid of one for a receiver or, a linebacker or whatever. I think they are better with both of them for sure. But the option's always there for them because, we've seen Aaron Rodgers do things without a running game before, so maybe he needs it now, but I don't think he needs both of them for how good he is. So yeah, a lot of options for the Packers. They have a lot of good picks in this draft. Last year's draft, really quick, I would say Eric Stokes played okay for them in their first round pick. We talked about Josh Myers, Amari Rodgers, their 3rd round pick from Clemson. Didn't really do much this season. I think they're kind of hoping for more for him out of the slot. And again, like you said, if they double dip at receiver, you got those 2 receivers, and you got Amari Rodgers as your 3rd. I feel like that would be pretty good going into this season. But let's move on to the Kansas City Chiefs here. Obviously a really great team and a franchise for sure. Patrick Mahomes is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but The big thing is they lost Tyreek Hill, a massive shift in the NFL for their offense. What do you make of that move? Do you like it? Do you hate it?
Um, I mean, listen, you're paying Mahomes like an obscene amount of money over, I think, what was it, 10 years?
Yeah.
So that's a huge chunk of your cap space ate up just like that.
Yep.
Um, you know, Travis Kelsey, you still have him. You know, he's one of those guys. He's listed as a tight end, but literally you can throw him anywhere on the field and he's going to make plays. You know, they picked up Juju Schuster Smith. I'm not sold on Juju going there, but
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be the long term deal, but I think it's going to be a different type of atmosphere for him. I think we're going to see a few good things from him, not a whole
Yeah.
lot, because I mean he is a good number two option. Just think back to when he was with Pittsburgh and Antonio Brown
Yeah.
was there. You know, he was a great number two option. He could still be that number two option to Travis Kelsey. And, you know, they did pick up Valdez Scantling as well, who obviously is a speedster. I mean, you're not going to replace Tyreek Hill. Like, it's not going to happen. I mean, the speed, the way he can separate,
Yeah.
you know, find space, so on and so forth, you're not going to replace him. However, you know, I do think of Andy Reid a little bit with this. You know, I mean, the guy is an NFL genius. Let's just throw it out there. You know, I think he went a lot of years without getting the credit he deserved. You
For
know,
sure.
think back to, you know, when his days in Philly. I
Yeah.
think he did more with less in Philly because, you know, I think of the wide receivers in Philly at the time, and the only one I could really think of that stood out to me, obviously, was Terrell Owens,
Yeah.
and
There
that
was
didn't
a
have the fairy tale. That didn't have the fairy tale ending that we thought it was going to have, but
just sit ups in his front yard.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
For
But
about let's say 8
yeah,
years, it was pretty much nothing. Then they got Deshaun and Jeremy Maclin. Those were some good years, but yeah, before that, it was just To and a bunch of nothing. So
yeah,
you're right. He does deserve more credit, absolutely. I do think this loss of Tyreek Hill kind of there's a little chink in his armor for Patrick Mahomes. I think like there's gonna be some bad things happening. Not like catastrophic, not like, we're going to turn the whole franchise upside down, but I think it's going to hurt him because, like you said, the speed is just on another level. It's unreal. It's something we really haven't seen before. Um, I would say Juju. I am a little underwhelmed by that signing. However, I think he's going to be put more in line in Kansas City than he was Pittsburgh. I feel like Pittsburgh, they didn't really try to control him at all. They just kind of let him be Juju in a way that's good, but also like he had no structure. And I think with Kansas City, with Pat Mahomes, like there's going to be structure. And with Andy Reid, like you do have a lot of talent, Juju, but if you're not producing, if you're not going to take it seriously, and you're probably not going to play. So I think this situation is definitely going to help him. And he's not going to be relied on as a number one option even if they don't get a receiver, which they will, but even if they don't, he won't be because Kelsey's the number one option, and that's pretty great for him. I would say edge also is a pretty big need. Frank Clark's going to be gone in a couple of years. He's pretty underwhelming. He's really hasn't been what he's promised to be the last couple of years. Tyrann Mathieu as well as a free agent, and he'll probably go to the Saints. I think that's been on his radar, and then corner as well. So I would say receiver, massive need, and then the secondary needs upgraded, and then probably an edge needs upgraded as well. Where do you think they should go with their first pick?
so I know I'm probably going to hear a little backlash about this, but I'm going to go for it anyway. Um, Me personally, I think they should try to move up. You know, because I think they should try to move up and get Breece Hall. I'm not sold on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, he's 2 years in, and last year he was in and out, mostly out. But I think you go for a guy like Breece Hall, who would be a good, I don't want to say better, but definitely a good option for Mahomes out of the backfield. One of those wide or one of those running backs that will be great for screen pass, swing pass, so on and so forth. But I bring that up because I looked at his stats, and you're talking in 3 years, like his stats are just so unreal. Like 2019 as a freshman, just under 900 yards, 9 TDs, rushing. His sophomore year, little over 1,500, 21 rushing touchdowns. And then this past year, over 1,400 yards with 20 TDs. I mean, I think he's, a little undervalued because he went to a school like Iowa State. Granted, it's Big 12. Big 12 has produced a lot of good running backs out of the years. But I think, for your long-term solution and to obviously that's not going to replace Tyreek Hill, but to give a better pass option for Patrick Mahomes out of the backfield, I think you move up. Don't buy the farm, obviously, on Breece Hall, but definitely try to move up in the draft and see what you can do about getting him.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because, he won't replace Tyreek Hill. However, if you wanted to change your offense a little bit or mold it because you aren't going to have a speed demon like Tyreek Hill, then you can't expect to replace Tyreek Hill in 1 year. So, you might have to change up the offense a little bit. And I feel like Breece Hall could be your, workhorse power back, but also do those things out of the backfield like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You just really can't count on him. Helaire. This last season, I feel like he didn't really read his blocks very well. I feel like he couldn't stay on the field. He was just very underwhelming. I think he's good, will be really good for that team as a second option or like a 1A, 1B option. So if you could get Breece Hall in this draft and really, kind of cater your offense a little bit differently, I think that would be smart, honestly, because in the NFL, you have to change it up every year. You can't just run the same offense every year and expect to blow teams out. I mean, the Chiefs this past year were in a one-score game, I believe, 15 out of the 17 games they've played. And that's not like them.
No, and, I said it a lot this past NFL season. They kind of became real predictable.
Yeah.
It's either you shut down Tyreek Hill for a game or you shut down Travis Kelce for a game.
Yep.
I mean, obviously it's hard to shut down both, but you take away one or the other and, you almost open up vulnerabilities for Patrick Mahomes. So, I think it would be in their best interest to go after Breece Hall, move up, see if you can move up a couple spots in the draft to pick him up. For their second pick in the first round, because they have 2 of them. And I'm a little biased on this because being a Michigan fan, I think they go for Ajabo. I know he just tore that Achilles. It's going to take him some time to recover. But dude is just raw talent. Like in the 20 games he played for Michigan, he improved tremendously. I think with the right coaching and, and I go back to Andy Reid's style of coaching here for a minute. I think you pair him up with the right coaching. I'm not saying he's going to be an all-time great. I'm not even going to say he's going to be a top 10 defensive lineman, but I think he can make quite a difference on the field if you were to pick him up. Have him sit the year to recover, watch game film, learn from Frank Clark, kind of mold him in the defensive lineman that you want him to be, especially for the Chiefs, who I feel like are going to be looking for a voice on the defensive side to lead them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Chris Jones in the middle for the Chiefs. Um, we've seen it with these D tackles recently. You can't just stick one D tackle out there and then expect him to wreck an entire offense. Like even Aaron Donald, who's elite. I mean, they had Von Miller this last year. Like they have guys to help them out. That way, they're not getting double, triple teamed. Chris Jones is a fantastic D tackle for them, and he's in their long term plan. So I feel like if you can get someone next to him that's again long term, that can be there, that can grow. I think that just benefits their entire defense. Ojabo, sad what happened to him, but I think it could help him in the long run just because he is so raw and unproven. But like you said, he's had some pretty good stats over the last couple of years, and also he's definitely early on probably a situational pass rusher, but he has all the tools that you need that you want to work with and could develop into a very, very good defensive end. So they have a surplus of picks. And listen, they're going to be in the playoffs this year anyway. I feel like they can afford to wait a year for Ojabo and let him just develop, get healthy, and then stick him on the field next year. But even if he gets healthy and he comes back, then they could stick him in at the end of this year, and he could provide really good situational pass rush for him. I like that. They definitely need a long-term answer at defensive end. You go back to his days with Philadelphia, that is a primary thing that he wanted. Brandon Graham comes to mind. Trent Cole comes to mind. They really need a very good pass rusher there long term. And I don't know if Frank Clark's that. I know they're a little stale on him, but if he's not, then there is a lot of options here for their picks. You said Ojabo, Drake Jackson's there. I feel like that could be another pick for them as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I didn't really watch a whole lot of film on Drake Jackson, but just for the stats that I did look up on him, I mean, you plug him into that type of um, situation with Kansas City. I feel like he can actually be a difference maker as
Yeah.
well. You know, Obviously with the Chiefs, you know, their offense, there's some pieces that they could use. But I mean, I wouldn't go out and reach for someone that you don't need, especially since, last off season you spent a lot of money, restructuring your O line to protect
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes. The problem was, like I alluded to earlier, is that you became predictable.
Yeah.
So, you know, while there are some I'll say needs for offense, I wouldn't overreach. Brees Hall is the only one I would, try to go for in a perfect situation, but I would almost take the year, you know, work on rebuilding your defense a little bit, especially in the secondary since you're losing Tyrann Mathieu.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely, definitely look for some defensive weapons in this year's draft.
And I think too they were in talks or they were eager to, put their feelers out for DK Metcalf. I know they're wanting to get an elite receiver right now. That could be an option. You'd probably have to give up like a first round pick for him. So that could be good for them. But you're right, their defense is pretty much in shambles, I would say, besides like their young linebackers. That you have Daxton Hill here. I love Daxton Hill so much. Like I want the Eagles to get him just because he can probably play like every position in the secondary. And I think the Chiefs need that kind of guy to do multiple things. Like Matthew played in the box. He played safety. He played, free safety. I'm sure he could play corner if you needed him to. You need a guy that's versatile on the back half of their defense. And I think probably Hill would go maybe middle first round to late. I'd probably put him in like the 25 to 30 range. I feel like that's a good spot for him. But if you could get him, I think that would be an instant upgrade for their defense. What do you think about his fit with the Chiefs?
I think it would be a great fit. I mean, like you said, he can pretty much do it all when it comes to your secondary. And I don't know. I would almost be tempted to go after him as well,
Yeah.
and look for him to be a replacement for Tyrann Mathieu, just
Yeah, I
because
would.
he can play multiple positions in the secondary.
Yeah, I fully believe that. Out of anybody, probably I watch him the most, just because like the Eagles, I'm an Eagles fan, so I'm desperate for some secondary help. So I've been looking at all these guys, and he reminds me a little bit of Malcolm Jenkins too, who just retired. Um, I love him. The Chiefs draft picks from this last year, they had Nick Bolton in the second. He turned out to be pretty good for them. Creed Humphrey, All Pro center, that was a really good pick. And then they got Trey Smith in the 6th round, who was starting for them. So they definitely rebuilt the O-line this year. I don't think they need any more pieces. I think you're right. They need a weapon, a receiver or running back, and then the rest is pretty much let's just go heavy on defense. Let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals, the runners-up in the Super Bowl. Sad they didn't win.
Yeah,
Um,
I was sold. I was sold on Burrow winning, but as a Vikings fan and seeing Matthew Stafford, suffer for a lot of years in Detroit, it was nice to see him finally, succeed in the playoffs. Finally, get on a team that, can do something. I mean, it was easy to hate on Matthew Stafford for a lot of years, but he's in a much better position with Los Angeles now. So I'm happy for the guy. I mean,
I would be too.
it's hard.
Honestly,
It's hard to hate him. Like it really
it
is.
is. I mean, to be with that franchise for so long and really not do anything, and just get beat up. Like for me, it'd kind of be like maybe Tony Romo with the Cowboys. Like I couldn't stand Tony Romo when he's on the Cowboys because I hate the Cowboys. And I always love to see them lose. But if he went to a team and won the Super Bowl, I'd be like, all right, like I'm happy for him. At least you're not winning with the Cowboys, like that's fine. Go for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good for him. I think they will probably be back at it again. They are reloading quite a bit this offseason. But for the Bengals, they have a few needs, offensive line being one of them. I think everybody knows that. They did sign La'el Collins.
Joe Burrow.
What's that?
I said protect Joe Burrow.
Yeah, that is priority number one. La'el Collins, they got him this offseason. Alex Kappa, Ted Karras. I would say Collins is probably the most for sure thing. But even at that, personally, I still think they're mostly Band-Aids. I think they could really use a long-term answer at literally any of those positions. If you look at their offensive line makeup right now, Jonah Williams is very underwhelming. Jackson Carman was drafted this last year in the 2nd round, I believe, and he played a multitude of different positions, but really couldn't find his way on any of them. And they got Ted Karras, Alex Kappa at center and guard. But for me, I think they're Band-Aids, and I really do think they should go after someone in the 1st round. I don't know if you disagree or agree with that.
I think they still need to try to find a long-term solution in the 1st round for their offensive line. Like for me personally, it's obvious they're committed to Joe Mixon. I know he just signed an extension this past season. I forget what the details of that were. You don't really need a wide receiver because, Jamar Chase, which for me was the surprise of 2021, this past season, especially, when he couldn't catch a ball at all in preseason, was saying, I can't catch it right because I don't see the whites like in, white hash marks or whatever, like on college footballs. Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins, they're, good options. Their defense surprised me a lot, especially in the, postseason.
Yeah.
You could still use some improvement though, but I think first and foremost, you need to build that offensive line, find a long-term solution because, if you're going to go all in on Joe Burrow, protect the guy. Do not put him in and I know I'm going to upset a lot of Colts fans with this, but don't put him in an Andrew Luck situation.
Right. I mean, even you look at Patrick Mahomes last year. We just talked about them. They went all in and rebuilt their offensive line in 1 year. Like it doesn't matter how good the QB is. You need protection, and you need to get him the pieces to improve and just do what he needs to do. But you're right. Their defense surprised me too. I do think they overperformed this year. I really do. I think they have a lot of good pieces. Besides maybe Jesse Bates and Trey Hendrickson, I would say, that's pretty much it for like studs on their defense. Ogunjobi, I think, went to the Bears. He's gone at D tackle. They need that. Eli Apple is pretty much burnt toast. We saw that in the Super Bowl. They could use an upgrade at corner. Defensive end, I think they're pretty much fine. But even as for offensive line goes, even if you have 6 or 7 guys and you say, well, our offensive line is already set, we have 5 guys that we can start, I don't care. Like, you need depth too. So, like, who cares if you think your offensive line is set? It's okay to pick up another couple guys just in case they go down. And then tight end as well. Hayden Hurst, they picked him up, but he's pretty much a journeyman at this point. I don't think he's a long-term solution there. Where do you think they should go with their first couple picks?
So for me personally, for their first-round pick 31, I think they should go with Bernard Raymond. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Raymond.
I think so.
But, I think they should go that route. I was looking at his size, and he is exactly what you need in an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
6'6", 300 plus pounds. I think he'll fall, or I think the reason why he'll fall in the draft a little bit is because he did not play in a Power 5 conference.
Right.
He played in the MAC, for Central Michigan. So, I mean, I think, you can find, the gems in the MAC conference every so often, especially when it comes to offensive linemen. I mean, look at Eric Fisher, who also went to Central Michigan.
Yeah.
Sure, Eric Fisher isn't the same offensive lineman he was when he was first drafted, but, that happens sometimes. I mean, he got hurt a few times over the years, and you're going to have that. But I mean, prior to those injuries, I mean, I personally think he was a great offensive lineman, and I think you're going to have the same thing with Bernard Raymond.
Yeah, Bernard Raymond actually played tight end his freshman and sophomore year. He was like 6'7", 240, and then he, went up
Just
to
up.
Yeah. So like the athleticism is there. I think you look at a lot of offensive linemen that play tight end and then go to tackle. I think sometimes it's a project, sometimes it doesn't work out. I know, but a lot of times like the athleticism is still there. Like Jason Peters, when he played for the Eagles, he was a tight end at Arkansas, and he comes to the NFL, moves to tackle, and one of the best tackles I've ever seen. Lane Johnson, another Eagle. I don't know why I'm bringing up so many Eagles. It's just on my mind. He played quarterback at Oklahoma, in community college, then played tight end. Like, athleticism is what you need from your tackles. You can't have guys like – it'd be one thing if he was like 6'7", 6'8", 330 and couldn't move. I'd be like, eh. But, like, athleticism is still there for him, and, like, his movement skills is off the charts. So, like, I think that's a home run pick if he was there at the end of the first round. I think he could easily trench himself as, like, their left tackle for the future. I really do. I put Kyler Gordon there, too, just because he's a very fast corner. I think Washington corners it has been a little bit hit or miss with the draft, but – for the most part, like they know how to play the position very well. And you look at Trent McDuffie in this draft as well, but you go back to Kevin King with the Packers. For the first year, he was good, and he turned out to be crap. But the Washington corners and the Cardinals right now with Budda Baker and Byron Murphy, they turned out to be really, really good. I think Kyler Gordon's a little bit undersized. It's only like 5'11", but I think if you're looking for a corner to step in day one, I think he could be your guy. Because again, if I was Bengals fan, I don't need to see Eli Apple on the field ever again. I don't want him. Yeah, I don't want him anywhere near us. So, is anybody else on this list sticking out to you?
Kyler Gordon for sure, just because, like, as you mentioned, like the Washington corners, especially, with Trent McDuffie as well, like it was funny to watch, Kyler Gordon and Trent McDuffie kind of compete with each other as well.
Yeah.
Like they pushed each other to, get better. So, they're going to be NFL ready right out the gate.
Yep.
And, I think it would be a huge improvement for, the cornerback position for Cincinnati. So if it's a toss up for sure. I mean, if I'm thinking long term solution though, especially if I want to protect my what's probably going to be my $100 million investment in Joe Burrow, I think I would still stick with an offensive lineman. But
yeah,
I mean, if you were able to swing something to where you could go out and get Kyler Gordon as well, by all means, do it. Improve that defense as much as you can, especially the secondary.
Yeah, and I think if you do improve offensive line and you improve your secondary a little bit or your pass rush, and I think like they could be, back in the playoffs. Again, I think overall they overperformed in my eyes. Like, don't get me wrong, they're a really good team. I think they're going to be a really good team as long as Joe Burrow is there. I just think like, once you get to the playoffs, you can't just have the same team back again. Like you need to improve every area that you can. And even though they don't have the surplus of picks, the Packers or Chiefs do because they have those trades, they have those extra picks. They still went out and put a lot of money in their offensive line free agency. Now in the draft, they could add to that. But with their first 3 picks, your first 3 round picks, I think you can get starters, and I think you can get guys that can contribute. So I would say offensive line, I would say corner, and then probably defensive tackle or defensive end, or even Ruckert from Ohio State at tight end. I think he's one of the most underrated tight ends in this draft. He had so many guys around him at Ohio State taking the ball away, like Olave, Wilson, even their running backs, Henderson. Pretty sure who else was there? Was it Reggie Wayne's son? Or no, Marvin Harrison's son. It plays for Ohio State. So like, there's so many guys there that he didn't really get the ball much. But in terms of being a blocker and a receiver, he does both very, very well. And he really wouldn't have to move anywhere if he's still in Ohio. So I think that could be a sneaky pick at like, 3rd round maybe. Because again, Hayden Hurst is just a stopgap Band-Aid, I think. He's not really a long-term answer there. So I think Ruckert would be a decent pick there as well.
Yeah, and I think he would be too because, like you said, he's the kid's from Ohio. He's already acclimated with, the Midwest weather. Yeah. So you don't necessarily have to worry about, him adapting. He can literally just hop in and go, jump right in, make a difference early on potentially.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you do need to improve a little bit on tight end. And, obviously the best option right now for tight end as far as free agency goes, I think, is Gronkowski still available?
I think he is, yeah.
Yep. But he's on the fence on whether he wants to retire or come back for another year. I think he should retire. And that's not to knock the guy. I mean, he's made a huge difference in the league. It's just he retired once before because, injuries. And, I think it's time to hang him up. So as far as tight end goes for Cincinnati, Hayden Hurst, like you said, definitely a Band-Aid, but I think if Ruckert's available, go for the kid. I think he would be a good option for Burrow for a few years for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree with that. I think if we look at their picks from 2021, we've talked about Jamar Chase. It's a home run pick. Jackson Carman, like I said, played multiple positions. We kind of hope he sticks somewhere and finds his place. Joseph Osai, who's going to come back from injury, he performed very, very well in preseason. They hyped him up a lot, and then he got hurt. Same with Cam Sample, defensive end in the 4th round. I think they are kind of high on him. So if they can get production from those guys, then they probably don't need to get a defensive end in this draft. But then they got their stud, Evan McPherson, their kicker, in the 5th round. And they got Chris Evans, who played pretty well for Michigan boy, in the 6th round last year. And he played pretty well for them in moments this year. So if they can have a similar draft like that, I mean, I think they're back in the thick of things next year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know how it is, man. Like every draft is different.
Yeah.
You know, one team is just gonna like all the stars are gonna align for them. Like every pick they need is gonna fall right into place. Yeah. And Bengals, I feel like got that last year. Can they go 2 years in a row doing that? I'd like to say yes, but the odds of that happening, I mean, it's hard to say for sure. I mean, I'm still waiting on, Minnesota to do something in this draft, but, we'll wait and see. I'm sure we'll repeat history and trade back, a few places. So,
listen, I still have some beef from when the Eagles passed up on Justin Jefferson and then the Vikings picked him instead. I'm still livid to this day. As soon as the Eagles pick came up, I was like, oh, Justin Jefferson. Like, I was, like, so pumped because I wanted him so bad. And then they picked Jalen Reagor, and I'm like, oh, my God. I'm still pissed off. Like, I knew he was going to be good. Everybody did. I don't know why.
I was going to say, like, generational talent, in my opinion. And,
for sure.
I can't wait for year 3 for Justin Jefferson. So long as Cousins, which he didn't have – statistically, he didn't have a bad year.
Yeah.
With Minnesota this last year, I put a lot of that on Zimmer.
Mm-hmm.
Now that he's gone, we finally went with an offensive-minded coach.
Sure.
Maybe Cousins can, finally get over the hump. I'm not that hopeful, but a guy can dream, so –
I think they have the offense to do it, in all honesty. I think they have enough pieces, enough talent. I mean, they've went heavy on their offensive line the last couple of drafts. We know the receivers they have. Dalvin Cook's obviously great. Madison as a backup is great. They definitely have the offense to do it. Maybe if they invest a little bit in their defense this draft, I mean, I think they could easily be a playoff team. So,
yeah, our defense was Achilles heel for us this past year for sure. I mean, it's hard to win games when you're giving up 25 plus points a game. So
yeah, we'll see what happens. Yeah, you just got to keep drafting corners, I guess. Or I don't know if Patrick Peterson has the legs anymore to be a number 1 corner. So I'm hoping they pick up someone.
Hopefully.
I think that wraps it up, everybody. Matt, thank you for joining us on this one. It was awesome to have you on. Definitely welcome back anytime. Definitely welcome back anytime you want. Go Eagles, go Vikings. Hopefully they both pick good guys in this draft. But thanks, guys, for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
See ya.